10th
Three,
anniversary is called the tin anniversary.
3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to the Built Different podcast. This is episode 10, and it's Super Bowl time. Yes, so as we film this, we're a few days away from the Super Bowl. When this episode comes out, it's gonna come out on a Saturday. It's gonna be the morning before the Super Bowl, morning, afternoon. Depends if I eat my Wheaties or not, the night before. But we'll definitely see. But the Super Bowl is here. My Eagles are in it. The Chiefs are in it. Bill, what is up, man? It's funny that episode 10 falls on the Super Bowl, but we're
Yeah.
here, and I'm
Happy
pumped.
10th anniversary here. While somebody will be hoisting the Lombardi tomorrow. This is exciting. This is what it's all built up to. We've really put off talking about it as much as we can because we've both been so excited about it. We wouldn't be able to talk about much anything else. So we'll still hit on a little bit of around the NFL stuff. We'll still hit on some other stuff that's not directly Super Bowl related. But by all means, this episode will be focused on the Eagles and the Chiefs. With the seasons they've had, they've really worked very hard to get here, earn their spots, and shaping up to be a really exciting game.
Yeah, man. And we got a fire episode for you guys today. Obviously we're here to talk about the Super Bowl, but besides that, we're going to touch a little bit on the coaches, we'll touch a little bit on the 49ers, touch a little bit on the Bears, give you some cool betting props from the game. We got a bunch for you today. So let's dig right in.
First, before we go around the NFL, I want to set the scene a little bit here. I want to really talk about the stakes that we have. Tom has picked, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the past 14 Super Bowl winners.
13.
13? Oh, he's going
13.
for 14. Maybe
Yes.
I'm the psychic here, predicting a 14th correct in a row.
Wow.
But Tom has picked 13 Super Bowl winners in a row correctly. Whether or not 14 happens is based on something that he's going to reveal for the very first time tonight during the episode. I don't know who it is yet. Got an idea. He's an Eagles fan. But we don't know for sure until that ball drops, which will happen later in this episode. Without actually telling us who you're picking, because we'll get into that. Tell us a little bit of the story about how this streak started, when this streak started, and how it's still going today.
Yeah, so basically, I think it was when the Giants beat the Patriots the second time. I realized that I had predicted 4 in a row. That's when it started. So the first one was when my bad, that was the third one in a row. But it all started when the Saints beat the Colts. That was when I finally understood what I was talking about when it came to football. And for me, you guys gotta look at the script. I'm not gonna go through every single one, but let's start with the first one, right? The Saints, when they won the Super Bowl, it was for Katrina. It was for Hurricane Katrina. There was no way they were gonna lose. I'm not saying it's rigged. But how I go into this is, can I picture said team winning? And whose story is really being, pumped, throughout the whole season. And at that point, it was Hurricane Katrina. The two seasons before that, I was wrong. I didn't think Brady was going to lose to the Giants that first time, and I thought the Cardinals were going to beat the Steelers. But I was a big Steelers hater, so thankfully for me, the Steelers never won again after that, or I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about this streak. But yeah, so the Saints got that one right. The Packers beating the Steelers. That was just, again, me being a Steelers hater, but it's gotten me this far in life, so we're gonna keep riding that wave. The Giants, that was mainly me being a troll. And then the rest of them, there was actually some actual good insight on. So for example, last year the Rams and the Bengals. Come on. Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp. It just, I could not picture the Bengals winning that Super Bowl, and they lost. They almost won, but they lost. The year before that, I could not see Mahomes beating Brady. It was just, the script was written for Brady. That just was what it was. The Chiefs. I mean, come on. If you really thought that Jimmy G was going to be sitting there hoisting the Super Bowl trophy up, no shot. There was no shot that was going to happen. And then the couple before, I mean, Jared Goff wasn't in the like. I think Jared Goff has a chance with the Lions, but with the Rams, he wasn't hoisting up the Super Bowl trophy. And then Nick Foles, like part of me was being an Eagle homer, but at the same time, it was like the story was just way too good for it to just end with a Super Bowl loss. So mainly, can you picture that team actually hoisting up the Super Bowl trophy? If it's Jared Goff or Jimmy G, no.
That's fair. That's fair. So the common theme here, outside of can you picture Jared Goff being able to lift a trophy, Jimmy G being able to lift a trophy, the common theme is essentially the script. Now,
Yeah,
script is the magic word in the NFL recently. We
I
heard it
love it.
all day through the Pro Bowl, which is awesome. But when you say script, I want to know if you feel that these things are actually scripted out and if that can be pulled off by all the NFL players, by the refs, by the quarterbacks, the
There's
coaches, whatever it might be, or when you say script, you just mean fate.
Well, by script, it's just like NFL. It's a big story game. Like you get, it's
What
not
I'm
like a
asking is
series.
this WWE or is
No.
this
Okay. No. If you want a straight answer, no. The NFL is not fake. It's not scripted. Who said it? Was it Andre Johnson? Whoever said it. That
Larry
no.
Johnson for sure?
There's too many people involved. Someone would
Yeah,
say something. A whole bunch of other people would agree. The whole sport would get thrown away. There's no way it's scripted. My reasoning for the story is because NFL is a momentum game. It's a big momentum game. It's not like the NBA or the MLB where you get a whole series, you get to really see who's better than the other team. I
yeah,
mean, it takes a lot. Like, I mean, you've seen it this year, yeah, with the Phillies. It takes a lot for a team's momentum to actually carry them through series. You don't see that a lot in MLB, but NFL, it's one game. It's for me, it's just
winner
big
take all.
story driven. So I don't know. NFL isn't fake. It'd be too hard. It'd be too. I mean,
It's
do I
impossible.
think that maybe the refs sometimes get messages into their headpiece? Hey, you got to do this, and then they keep it between themselves and Roger Goodell. Maybe there's probably been situations where that's happened. I mean, with the NBA, do I think that's happened? Yes. I mean,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, do I think the whole overall thing? Do they sit there at the beginning of the season like, oh yeah, it's gonna be the Eagles and the Chiefs, and it's gonna be no? Because if that was the case, we would have seen the Bills and Tom Brady duking it out right now to end the season because that's what everyone would watch. So
right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, Tom Brady wouldn't be retired just yet, and I agree entirely. I think if this is how the script was written, they did a piss poor
pretty
job
boring.
because they left us with some pretty boring games over the championship weekend.
Yeah,
So that has to be peak excitement as you lead up to the Super Bowl. So either that or they just need to hire some better script writers. I don't know what needs to
Josh
happen.
Allen just couldn't get it done,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
matter what.
but it's unreal. It's unreal. So let's just do a quick lap around the NFL. Let's talk about some open items that we have hanging right now. We're getting close to wrapping up the coaching carousel. It's coming to a halt, but not before two more teams name their starting or their head coaches, not starting head coaches. We have the Cardinals and we have the Colts that still have not named their head coaches yet. We were talking a little bit earlier today, and I really can't think of any reason why the Colts wouldn't have a head coach right now if it weren't for them trying to figure out how to explain in a press conference why they're
Jeff
hiring one Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Sunday.
Jeff Sunday. So, what do you think is going on in Colts Nation right now? Why do you think this is open? And do you actually believe that Saturday is going to be their guy, at least for the coming year?
I mean, well, when it comes to the Colts, I don't know. I mean, I think they're just really stuck as a franchise. I really genuinely think it's more so they really don't know what direction they want to head in. And I think they're being really careful about this. If it is Jeff Saturday and they're sitting there like every day, like, how do we explain this? That would be nuts. But at the same time, I just think the Colts, they just got a really weird roster. They have a top draft pick. It's it's not an easy choice, especially when Sean Payton didn't want anything to do with the Colts. Jim Harbaugh didn't want anything to do with the Colts. DeMeco Ryans chose the Texans over the Colts. And Frank Reich chose the Panthers. I mean, why would he choose the Colts anyway? Well, I'll cut that out of
You
the
can't.
thing. But I mean that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of stuck where they don't have the best options, but at the same time, the options that they do have to be careful because they don't have the best roster. I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor in a dream, so
Yeah. You're
um,
you're not allowed to fumble these high draft picks in the NFL. You don't
yeah,
get them that frequently because there's so much parity in this league that even the bad teams have a good chance of winning 4 or 5 games. You do that, and you're not going to end up in a position to draft the quarterback of the future. Period. Unless you're willing to trade the ranch to get into the top three, you're not often going to be there. So
yeah.
it's tough. And like you said, they have to get this right, and they kind of already can. Their second interviews are guys like Jeff Saturday, Aaron Glenn, Raheem Morris. They're guys that aren't really landing second interviews anywhere else. So it's either that everyone else is wrong or the Colts are wrong. And given the
I
recent track
also
record,
I don't
kind of
think
seems
Jeff
like the Colts.
Saturday is that bad of a choice for this either. I mean, either I get it. He's not talented as a coach yet. I mean, he has a long way to go. But we saw that he knows how to motivate a group of guys. I mean, there would have been 0 wins, but he got one. He got
Yeah.
one win, and that was the first time that he stepped on the field as a head coach. And past that, I honestly think it was a good idea that they lost every single game for the rest of the season. I mean, losing to the Texans the way they did, losing to the Vikings the way that they did, I'd almost sit here and say that that was scripted, as if, the Colts blew those games on purpose after they realized what they were doing. But when it comes to the Colts, I mean, I really want to be opposed to them getting Jeff Saturday again because again, this roster is a mess. They might need another year to really figure out the direction that they're going in. They might need to take a chance with this draft pick, understanding that if the quarterback is anything shy from one of the next best things, they're probably going to have a really bad year and they're going to be picking at the top again. So, with that being said, might as well just hire Jeff Saturday. If he
Yeah.
becomes a good head coach, great. The meme of all time is now greatness. But if it doesn't work out, okay, you get a top draft pick, you get another shot at this coaching thing. But do we think they're going to win this year regardless? In my opinion, I'm already crossing off the Colts. So
Yeah.
I'd have to see some magic.
Right. And Jeff Saturday has nothing but a little bit of magic. It's not good magic, but he's got a little bit left. So I agree with you. I think they're in position to draft a top talent. And what I think you said, it makes a lot of sense, is maybe they do stick with Jeff Saturday because really, what do you have to lose? If he's a bad coach, he's not going to win many games. He's not going to coach you into mediocrity on his own.
Yeah.
If he does, then damn, that's promising for his future because that's not a super talented Colts roster. And if he can
And
muster up 6-11 out of that, then that's promising moving forward. If he can't, guess what? You got another crack at it next year. Better luck next time. And hopefully there's a better market for coaches because it sure ain't happening for you this year.
And consider the fact that the Colts still haven't really rebuilt at this point
Yeah.
because they went from Peyton Manning. He had a nightmare freak
Yep.
injury. You draft Andrew Luck with the same weapons that Peyton Manning had. Oh, guess what? Andrew Luck's actually really good. We don't need to tear down the whole roster.
Right.
Andrew Luck does good. Okay, freak injury. Andrew Luck is out. And then you just cycled in a bunch of quarterbacks that were on their way out of the league that still had a little bit of magic and a little
Yep.
bit of juice left in them. The team still hasn't been rebuilt from the ground up.
Right.
So
There's a
I
chance to
Jeff
maybe do
Saturday.
that. But I also wouldn't be shocked if we end up somehow seeing Derek Carr there with a different head coach. So
Right.
we'll see how it goes. Exciting offseason. We're going to talk about all that plenty throughout the offseason. But moving to teams that are more recently eliminated than the Colts, we got quite a bit of 49ers airwaves getting out there over the past week. We got a comment that I want to talk about from one Christian McCaffrey, how and who he's rooting for the Super Bowl. He hopes
These
both
guys,
teams lose. So you gotta appreciate when the saltiness comes out. I think that's just one of the more
and
fun parts of the game.
it's not even just from him either. It's their kicker. They had the Fred Warner. They like so many of these 49er players have came out. Like the saltiness is insane. And I don't understand it because it's like just die on the hill that your quarterback got hurt and that's that. He got hurt on the first drive, come back next year. But instead, they make it seem like it was a last drive ref throwing the flag, kind of deal, and it really wasn't. It just wasn't even.
No.
You guys just showed up and got train
Yeah.
rolled.
And it sucks. Like obviously, one thing that I think does change from this, I think we do change the emergency quarterback rules a little bit. This is something that existed before and then got eliminated in favor of having an extra man available on the overall roster. What it used to be is you name an emergency quarterback. He's your third string quarterback. And if you put him into the game for one snap, then your first two quarterbacks are no longer available for the rest of the game. I could see that coming back. I could absolutely see that coming back. But also with
Needs
concussion protocol and everything now, and having to pull quarterbacks out, like there could be some wacky rules coming up. I think they could change it pretty drastically. But I do
that
think
game
we
was
have a rule
embarrassing.
change coming because of that. Because honestly, it wasn't good for anybody. It wasn't good for the Niners. It wasn't good to help the Eagles actually prepare for the Super Bowl. And it certainly wasn't good for the fans. It wasn't good for Brock Purdy being out there with his freaking noodle of an arm, just
One
dangling.
one one hit, and we're probably talking about a guy that can't play football anymore.
Right, right. So it's unreal. I can't believe it happens still, and we talked about it last week, so
Yeah,
we won't dwell on it. But quick breaking news before we continue with the 49ers stuff. Just saw that Kenneth Walker finished with the most first place votes for Offensive Rookie of the Year, but Garrett Wilson takes home the trophy with 18 first place votes to Kenneth Wilson's 19 because of more second place
second
votes
place
than came
was.
in.
Yeah,
So that's a new rule. That's the first time that's ever happened because of a rule change. So congrats to Garrett Wilson. He had a hell of a year. The
hell of a
Jets
year.
offense would look very promising if they had a quarterback, but they don't. So on to the 49ers. So also a comment that we got from George Kittle. He named Brock Purdy as he basically said the quarterback position on the 49ers is Brock Purdy's to lose. Who do you think in week one of the upcoming season will take the first snap at quarterback for the 49ers? Trey Lance or Brock Purdy?
I mean, Brock Purdy. I mean, at this point, I mean, it's kind of like he didn't lose the job. I mean, he got the job and he did well. I mean, it's not. It sucks for Trey Lance. I'm, as you know, and people that have watched our episodes know, I'm a huge fan of Trey Lance, and I believe honestly this year that if Trey Lance had gotten his legs under him, that this 49ers team would have actually been unstoppable to the levels that the Eagles were unstoppable. And then that NFC Championship game would have been actually very unreal. But we didn't get that. And now I don't really know what we're going to get from Trey Lance because now this is another year that he really didn't get to play. And I mean, it sucks for him because it's really, I mean, yeah, it sucks. It was just a freak injury at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. But I think the 49ers should hold on to him though, because Brock Purdy, he needs a whole season.
Yeah.
My point to the Brock Purdy thing was that I didn't believe in Brock Purdy because it's this third string, last draft pick just coming up out of nowhere, and he has nothing to lose himself. So
Yeah.
again, with that huge offense, He's looking to prove himself. He didn't even think he was going to be there, and there you have it. That's a starting quarterback in this league right there. So
Yeah,
I would, yeah, I mean, I agree. Might as well give it to Purdy. I mean, it depends how he comes back because his arm, the UCL on your throwing arm.
it's tough.
49ers in a rough spot. They're gonna need. It's gonna be another situation where it could be funny if they retain Jimmy G as as their third quarterback, but they're gonna need a third quarterback in my opinion.
Yeah,
And if last year wasn't an example of that, I mean they're really gonna need a third quarterback because like Brock Purdy, we don't know how he's gonna come back because that's a torn UCL on your throwing arm. Trey Lance still doesn't have more than I think like 2 or 3 starts in one season.
right.
It's just not. You got to have a third guy like
Yeah.
Joe Flacco would probably be like perfect to insert into that.
Yeah, plenty of guys, and ultimately, if they're that good at identifying quarterback talent, then shit, grab one in the fifth or sixth round, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. Brock Purdy, you're right. First off, you don't know how he's going to return from UCL, but also traditionally, the NFL is pretty damn good throughout the league at figuring out who the talent is coming out of the draft. Given, I mean, that does take into consideration that 31 teams passed up on Jalen Hurts, 31 teams passed up on Lamar Jackson, 31 teams passed up 7 times on Tony Romo, for example, like undrafted guys that end up doing great throughout their career. And it's not going to be perfect, but there's a reason why everyone passed up on Brock Purdy so often. So he might not be the highest ceiling guy. And frankly, this 49ers team just cannot be this good for this long outside of the quarterback position. Especially once they have to pay somebody, whether it's Purdy, Lance, whoever else. Maybe they don't pay anybody ever, and maybe they just ride
It,
the rest of the team.
if I'm
But
San Fran, I'm what I'm doing is I got to stop taking these chances. Honestly, the thing that's really got me mad about the 49ers is that they kept taking these chances with Jimmy G, hoping that he'd give them a full season, get into the playoffs, and magically, flame it up in the playoffs.
yeah,
And when Trey Lance went down last year, they relied on Jimmy G to get him all the way to the end, and then they were stuck with Brock Purdy, who it ended up actually working. What I would love for San Fran to do is just say fuck all this and just go get a top quarterback. Just
yeah,
do it. This team, like you just said, this team is not going to be like this for too long. They may have, we saw the Rams, how fast they declined.
yeah.
There could be 1 year left. There could be 2. There could be 3. But why do we keep taking our chances with these quarterbacks? Go get yourself the best quarterback that's available. Give them Trey Lance. Give him picks. Let Brock Purdy be the backup. He's a solid backup.
Right.
You have nothing to lose. Because in my opinion, George Kittle took a big step back this year. He's not the George Kittle that's, just dominating every single game. You got to watch
Yeah.
out for him. That's the first step. Now Debo Samuel is starting to show decline. That's scary because we all know Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a lot of years left either. So
Yeah,
you
we'll
got the
talk
guys.
49ers a lot more during the offseason, just like everything else. I think there are distinct reasons why we saw less from Kittle, less from Debo, and ultimately not quite the ceiling from CMC even either. So again, we'll dive 49ers very deep at one point down the road. But to wrap it up, I did want to talk about one other thing and the upcoming NFL draft. We have the number one pick that miraculously went to the Chicago Bears after the Texans end up
They
beating
were
Jeff
probably
Saturday's
praying they
Colts.
got number 2. They were
Yeah,
praying they got number 2.
it's insane. But with that pick, Justin Fields has informed the media that the Bears have not informed him of where they're going with that pick yet. Whether they're going quarterback, they're going elsewhere, or they're
What?
trading the pick.
I
Given
mean,
if he's talking about it, it means that he shouldn't know because he's a liability to giving away strategy. The fact that we've heard this much. But do you feel that's fair to Justin Fields? Do you think that they should stick with Justin Fields? And, just overall thoughts. What do you think?
I like Justin Fields. I said it during the season that he's shown that he finally now has the ability. But Justin Fields also needs to remember who he is. He can't throw the football. He is a runner. He is Justin Fields. I mean, yeah, if we give him some weapons, just like we can give any quarterback weapons,
Yeah.
they will be good. But my thing is like the Bears, they don't have a team at all. No matter what they do in this draft, they are going to be bad next year. Unless they miraculously turn this pick into some right now talent that's going to turn this team around right now, they're going to be horrible. And they're probably not even sure that they want to go forward with Justin Fields like past a couple of years anyway, unless he turns it around himself. But well,
Yeah.
what do you think? Because I'm just
Number
I
one
don't
pick.
I'm confused. I'm just as confused about this Bears situation as he is.
So that's fair. You're not in that organization. You're not supposed to have clarity. He should. I think whatever they're doing, unless they are drafting a quarterback, has to be communicated to him effectively. But to me, if they truly haven't talked to him yet, that's a confidence burner. It's not going to help your organization to not be honest with him if your intention is to trade it, if your intention is to draft a defensive tackle, if your intention is to go anywhere but quarterback, or your intention is to keep him, you need to tell him that because
Yeah.
that could give him the confidence he needs. Now, the other thing is maybe they're playing it the opposite, where a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa needed confidence going into this past season. Maybe they need to kick Justin Fields down a notch because he's done some things that he's
Well,
confident
they got
in.
the number one. They got the number one pick in the draft for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. But honestly, it wasn't Justin Fields. I'll say
Well,
that.
yeah,
He
but
is the most talented player on that roster. And whether or not they know how to use that is a different story. Whether or not they have talent that can match that and get the most out of Justin Fields might be a different story. I was dead wrong on Justin Fields. I came in probably on the first episode of this talking about how bad this dude sucks.
yeah,
And I bit my tongue quickly when I saw him play the Dolphins. He
yeah.
went off on the ground, but still went off. And he showed that he can throw the ball enough. He doesn't have to be absolute Jalen Hurts here. Jalen Hurts ends up, I don't know about leading the league in completion percentage, but he was very close if he didn't. Justin Fields doesn't have to be that guy. He can be middle of the pack in all these other stats and running the way he was running. He was doing it in a way that, in theory, shouldn't get him hurt. He was doing it the way I see, Lamar Jackson do it, Jalen Hurts do it, not the way I see Josh Allen do it, where you take these unnecessary hits. I think it's sustainable to have Justin Fields as your guy, but I don't know. I think they're off to a weird start of that after he does good for 1 year, and then all of a sudden they don't want to commit to the guy. It's not the move I'd make being non-committal to him. I'd kind of let him know either way, unless, well, not either way. I'd let him know if he was going to be my guy. So maybe this means that they're looking at a quarterback with the first pick.
Well, what do you think before we move on to the good juicy stuff that we're gonna move on to? What do you think the Bears should do? Because in my opinion, I think they could get more out of a trade for Justin Fields than they could get for that first pick anyway. Because Justin Fields, you know what you're gonna get with him. A team could have the weapons that would make Justin Fields a next level quarterback. I would almost, if I'm the Bears, I would almost trade Justin Fields for get the quarterback and get a whole bunch of stuff around that new quarterback.
Yeah, you know, it is very hard to say because teams don't trade for quarterbacks very often. It's I don't really know what his value would be, and I don't really know what the first overall pick value would be, because we've seen things like the RG3 trade where Washington absolutely gave up the ranch to get into that draft spot,
Or the Browns
and
with Baker.
yeah, same deal. So the pick I've seen be sold at absolute premium. The quarterback, you don't see it as often where it's really garnishing such a high price tag. So I don't know. I have a hard time trading away Justin Fields when I know you can trade away that number one pick for a lot. but in a weird draft class where, it's relatively deep and there isn't necessarily a single quarterback that's that much better than the next and the next, I don't know if you're going to get what you want from it. So you really got to take your best guy available. And I think if that means you end up with two quarterbacks in the room, so be it. If your guy is Justin Fields, great. If your guy is whoever you pick up, if it's CJ Stroud, also great. I think if you're just taking an extra lottery shot at maybe the best player in the NFL, which every quarterback prospect has the chance to be that, generally they're not going to be. But, I think it's a shot you got to take if no one's willing to really pay the right price. So
Yeah, for
quickly
sure.
before we get into the real juicy stuff, we got a few more awards that have come out. The Jets do end up cleaning house on the rookies. So Sauce Gardner, as expected, wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. The Defensive Player of the Year goes to one Nick Bosa, just as we talked about the saltiness. And the Offensive Player of the Year goes to one Justin Jefferson. So all makes sense.
Okay.
Everything is pretty much as expected right now to an extent. Cool to see a wide receiver get it. Jefferson had a hell of a year. It's for a weird, very weird Vikings team, but
Pay the
I don't
man.
know. I don't know if I would have given him Offensive Player of the Year, to be honest. I think it's hard to not give it to one of these quarterbacks that have led their teams to a lot of success. But
I like it though. I mean, I feel like because the MVP is just the quarterback's award. If we're being honest, I mean, yeah, we had our Adrian Peterson and other scenarios, but I'm fine with it. I mean, if Offensive Player of the Year gets reduced to a non-quarterback award and MVP goes to a quarterback, and they just they leave it as the unwritten rule, I'm cool with that.
yeah,
Because Justin Jefferson, like you said, I mean, it was nice that he got that recognition for top five MVP, but we know he's not going to win the MVP, and no one's going to
right,
remember him as a top five,
right,
MVP guy. No one remembers that ever. I don't even
yeah.
know who Aaron Rodgers beat last year to win the MVP. Sorry, it was Josh Allen, but yeah.
So one more comes in. D'Amico Ryans takes home Assistant Coach of the Year. So we also have Salute to Service Award going to Ron Rivera. We've got a few that probably don't need to be mentioned on here. That was probably one of them. So with that said, let's dive into the moment we've all been waiting for. Super Bowl 57. Eagles versus Chiefs. First, let's take a look at how we got here. Tom, I want to throw this over to you. Walk us through the roller coaster of the season that the Eagles had.
Yeah, I mean, not really a roller coaster, but kind of,
It
I
was a
mean,
pretty smooth roller coaster.
yeah, the best roller coaster you could ride on, it
Not
was the
many
one that just
loops, not much downhill at all. But
But
hey,
I mean, coming into the season, the Eagles they had a good team, but no one knew how exactly good because a lot of it was going to depend on Jalen Hurts. A lot of it was going to depend on how actually good this defense was going to be, and a lot of it was going to depend on will AJ Brown, smoothly, dissolve into this offense. Guess what? All those answers were checked off as yes, and it was just great. I mean, in the beginning of the year, there was some close games. A lot of people were talking, trash about the Eagles, like, oh, they're barely beating these bad teams, and it just was what it was because we just didn't lose. And then we got to the end of the year, fatigue finally set in. Jalen Hurts got hurt. He put the hurt into the Hurts name. Was a little scary, but a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, you have to just figure that he's going to get hurt at some point, whether it be a minor injury or major. Thank God it wasn't major, it was minor. Unless he just reveals after the season's over, I tore my whole shoulder, but I'm a gangster. I played through it. But yeah, I mean, the season, there was just no real. It was just every single game was just it was good. It was beautiful. It was nice to see the playoffs. We got there. Gardner Minshew even got a couple of starts, couple of losing starts, made things interesting. Leave it up to the Eagles. They're nice guys. They made things interesting at the end. It didn't have to be, but they made things a little interesting. Get into the playoffs, and there hasn't been a game close. Just completely barrel rolled over the Giants and just completely steamrolled the 49ers. Like, that was honestly, I didn't think there could be uglier than that Giants game.
Yeah.
And then we got that 49ers game. And here they are. We got Jalen Hurts horribly singing the Fly Eagles Fly, and we're here.
And welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
Now let's hear
Uh,
this roller coaster that is Kansas City.
so this one had a little bit of a roller coaster feel to it, and here's why. AFC West during the offseason ends up loading up on outside talent. A lot of people come in. Tyreek Hill goes out. Travis Kelce getting a little bit older. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the weapons that he's used to.
The
He's got pretty much
challenge.
the whole new wide receiver room. Clyde Edwards-Helaire hasn't really proven himself yet, and doesn't end up doing so. Defense has some question marks, starting a lot of rookies. They flipped over 20 players from their 53-man roster last year. Chiefs are picked by a lot of experts that might not really be experts to finish last in the AFC West. That
Imagine.
does not happen. Instead, the Chiefs go on to win all but 3 of their games, losing only to the Bills, who they don't end up getting matched up against, despite the script really being pointed toward that direction. They lose one game to the Bengals, who end up talking a bunch of trash and calling it Burrowhead and everything else, end up avenging that loss in the playoffs. And they lost to the Colts, which we're just not going to talk about because how the hell did that even happen? So, with only 3 losses on the season, they get into the playoffs, matched up against the Jaguars. Mahomes ends up hurting his ankle. And this game is all of a sudden a lot closer than it probably should have been. So, Trevor Lawrence keeps the Jags in it, but Chiefs get it done. Then, Chiefs versus Bengals. There was all the trash talk, and as we know, the Chiefs do avenge that loss from earlier in the season. So now, the Chiefs have absolutely silenced everybody that wonders if Mahomes is really just a product of Tyreek Hill getting Kelce open and Kelce getting Tyreek Hill open and Mahomes just taking advantage of people that are open by 10 yards. Instead, turns into a bit more of a dink and dunk offense that still ends up averaging one of the highest yards per completion in the NFL. So, offensively, studs. Everyone plays to their full potential throughout the year. We've had wide receivers go up and come down and everywhere else. Mid-year trade to the Giants for Kadarius Toney, which could prove very helpful for this Super Bowl, especially as Mecole Hardman ends up on the injured reserve, who was really the only holdover from that entire receiver room. So now you have 3 new guys that are going to be out there during the Super Bowl, and it hasn't been a consistent starting lineup for them all year. But guess what? They still get it done. So in the end, we have the number 1 seed in the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs, who many picked to finish last in their division, that ends up with a very good chance to hoist that Lombardi at the end of this season. So that gets us up to speed for anybody that wasn't paying attention. It's hard not to at this point, but you didn't watch any football for the rest of the year. Now you don't have to go
and
back and
that
rewatch it all.
and that's the thing that I admire about Patrick Mahomes is that, like, every season it's felt like a new challenge for him, and he's just risen to the occasion. You know who else that reminds me of? That reminds me of one Thomas Brady. And we know the comparisons, we know the similarities there.
Oh, they're just
You
starting
know,
though.
say that again?
Those comparisons are just starting. There's going to be a lot of those over the next few years, even, let
Yeah.
alone, what really has to happen for Mahomes to prove himself for that is if this Chiefs team takes a big dip and then he's able to pull them back. So as of right now, with everything else, that goes into the mix, a lot of credit can go to Andy Reid. A lot of credit can go to Travis Kelce. A lot of credit can go to some of the defenders. Even Frank Clark is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. We'll talk more about him in a moment. But ultimately, if he has all this consistency, this is a Chiefs dynasty right now that we're kind of
Yeah.
talking with
And
only
I
one Super
mean,
Bowl, but still, it's a Chiefs thing right now. Whereas if that team dips and then he comes back up, then all of a sudden it's a Mahomes thing, and this guy is
yeah.
really potentially one of the greatest that ever did it.
Well, the thing I want to point out too is as great as Andy Reid is as a coach, we all love Andy Reid. We all love the burgers. We all love that he's fat and he knows it. And it's just one of the greatest things ever. I love Andy Reid, former Eagles coach. No hate against him. He didn't win. He didn't get over the hump until Patrick Mahomes was the thing. I
Yeah,
mean, he had amazing teams in Philly and he had amazing teams in. I mean, granted it was Alex Smith, but like he had really good Kansas City teams, but he couldn't even get out of the first round with Alex Smith. So, I mean, when Patrick Mahomes just comes in and now all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes MVP, Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes is he going to be better than Tom Brady? When all those are being said, I kind of have to look a little more at Patrick Mahomes, and I think this year really solidified this for me. But like you said, dynasty. I mean, the AFC has ran through them the last 5 seasons in a row now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah, he's at least been in the AFC Championship for 5 seasons in a row. He
Yeah.
hasn't necessarily made the Super Bowl, and as we know, the Bengals even got there last year, but still has made the AFC Championship. He's one of the 2 teams standing at the end of it, where 14 teams are sitting home watching him play on the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
Then that's wild. It's never happened before for 5 years in a row for Brady or for anyone else. So unreal, and by all means, we could sing Mahomes' praise for the rest of this episode in all likelihood. But let's not do that. Let's also take a look at the other side of the ball. And what we're going to just get through all around now, we're going to do a position by position breakdown.
Mhm.
That can wrap up our Mahomes talk for the quarterback side. But let's take a look at the other side of the ball. What does Jalen Hurts bring to the table? And at the end of that, who do you give the edge to for quarterback, Mahomes or Hurts?
So I mean, Jalen Hurts. I mean, I don't want to say he's a product of the system because he's not. I mean, we saw what happens when Jalen Hurts isn't playing, but I do think it is a little bit more of a complete team effort because if we look at this team without AJ Brown last year, that offense struggled when it mattered most against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Jalen Hurts looked awful when he played a good defense, but Jalen Hurts. I mean, come on, we know the guy. We love the guy. The guy can run. The guy can pass. The guy can get
The
through tough
leader.
situations. He can convert almost every fourth down situation that you present to him if you let him go for it. He's the definition. I mean, well, I want to say the definition of clutch because he wasn't really handed too many clutch situations this year.
I've
But
got
the guy rose to the situation. I mean, he was benched in college
yeah,
and rose to this point still.
yeah,
A lot of people have fallen off with a lot less.
right, right.
like,
It's
and go ahead.
to me, you there is not enough time to talk as highly as we can and should of Jalen Hurts as well. There's nothing left for him to prove. Where going into the season, it was a genuine question whether Hurts or Minshew were going to be the starting quarterback. I'm not saying it should have been a genuine question, but it was one that was asked. And Hurts has proven himself time and time again, week in, week out. And you saw how much that team crumbled when he's out. You really, really thoroughly understand now the importance of Hurts to that team. And they love him. The city of Philadelphia loves him. He's the man for that
I gotta
team.
give him a round of applause because it's
Absolutely.
it's still hilarious to me because when we're sitting here and I thought it was again the most stupidest argument ever when the entire fan base is arguing should we move forward with Nick Foles or should we move forward with Carson Wentz, and I'm just sitting there like doesn't matter. Like Nick Foles, we know is not a starting quarterback anymore, and Carson Wentz is fool's gold. So I'm glad that Jalen Hurts existed and became a thing because I think the Eagles genuinely got lucky because they weren't
Yeah,
even going to pick him up with that draft pick either. They
no,
just got the hunch on that night. They got the hunch when Jalen Hurts dropped as far as he did. They just got a hunch to trade for a pick and get him.
yeah,
And the rest is history. But if you want me to pick who's better, I have to give the edge to Mahomes here just because again, Mahomes has less of weapons around him and he's doing more. I mean, he's thrown for more yards. More than likely Mahomes is probably our MVP unless they do go with the Hurts story, him being I think 14-1 when he started this year in comparison to the 14-3 that Mahomes was. But I got to give it to Mahomes. I mean, as a thrower, and I think that's what it's going to come down to in this game. If the Chiefs are smart, they're going to make sure that Hurts stays in the pocket. They're going to make sure of that. And if it's pocket Mahomes versus pocket Hurts, because the Eagles are going to do the same exact things to Mahomes, they're not going to let him, run around and do Patrick Mahomes shit anyway. I don't think he does anyway because of his ankle, but I think pocket Mahomes versus pocket Hurts. I think pocket Mahomes wins that 9 times out of 10.
yeah. I mean, it's hard not to give this to Mahomes. So I'm
Right.
going Mahomes as well. I do think Mahomes gets a pretty sizable edge here, one that may end up offsetting some other discrepancies. So ultimately, it's you can't go against this guy. There's no quarterback in the league, and this is no fault of Jalen Hurts. Mahomes is just the best there is right now, and he also has tremendously more Super Bowl experience than Hurts does, which is zero. So you got to really give him the edge on so many different parts of this. The question is, do either of them, with the injuries that happened pretty recently, do either of them go down? If they do, let's say they both go down, just real quick, who do you have? Who do you give the edge to as a backup, Minshew or Henny?
Minshew.
Well, I'm going Henny here. I think it it's a product of the situation more so than the player themselves.
Well, I
I
have to
am
if we're gonna do the product of the situation, I think at that point, if we do get a miraculous situation where it's Minshew versus Henny, I gotta look at the team at that point, and I think the Chiefs are
okay.
dead in the water at that point.
Maybe I am kind of stretching the boundaries of the question a little bit when I give that to Henny. I've just seen Henny do it with this
Yeah,
team
for sure.
in the playoffs. I haven't seen Minshew do it with this Eagles team yet. So it's a product of what have you done for me lately, as much as the surrounding team.
For
So
sure.
I'm giving it to Henny either way. But I think you're right. I might have stretched it just a little bit with that. So
Well, I
out of
mean,
the
I
running,
think to
go ahead.
say to save a little time, I mean, I think we can both agree that the receivers in the running game would go right to the Eagles, right?
So yeah, I mean, let's break it down super fast. I think the running backs are a lot closer
Yeah,
than
for
the
sure.
receivers.
Yeah,
I
especially
think
with the way Miles Sanders has performed so far in the playoffs. I love the way Pacheco's been playing.
yeah, Pacheco is a candidate for Good Morning Football's angry run of the week every week for a while now. The man runs fierce,
I
and
love it.
I hope to see more of him. But beyond that, I think Jarek McKinnon is an absolute monster that they have not
He showed.
unleashed yet in these playoffs. We saw it very often in the end of the season where they were dumping off to McKinnon. He was making magic happen. And that's what I think has to happen when you have a hurt ankle. And we didn't see it from Mahomes. We didn't see McKinnon utilized. Given we had Pacheco on the field more often, which I have no problem with, but I think at the number one spot, I do give Miles Sanders a slight edge over Pacheco, and I think we see more Sanders than we see anything else from the Eagles. But I think the next best running back out of the whole group is Pacheco, and the next best after that is Jarek McKinnon.
I would
So
agree.
Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott have both played phenomenal
Love
roles.
them. Yes.
Awesome. I like both players, so I'm happy to see them succeed in limited work. But I have a hard time really just shoving this whole thing over to the Eagles on account of Miles Sanders, which the Eagles don't always know how to utilize. So I would probably give this a draw if I could, but I know that's against the rules, so I will give it to the Eagles based on Miles Sanders and going 3 deep, whereas Ronald Jones is a non-factor, so you only really have 2 in Kansas City. So you're right. Long story that could have been shorter. Receiver and running back do both go to the Eagles. So now we have quarterback Chiefs, running back receiver Eagles, tight end, another no contest.
Yeah. I mean, I love, um, yeah. Oh yeah,
Goddard's great.
Kelsey. Yeah. I
There's
mean,
no
I
question.
love,
Goddard
yeah, I
can
love
be very
Goddard.
good.
Goddard is amazing. He's been what we needed him to be ever since Ertz fell off. But it's Travis Kelsey.
Yeah. Realistically, I would say the best tight end to ever play the game, bar none. And
Yeah.
no disrespect to Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Gronk. It's just not close to me. He's done so much for this team, and he is as much of the reason as Mahomes is almost as to their 5 AFC championship appearances in a row. So, really, again, similar to the Mahomes situation, you put him up against any other tight end in the league, and it's clearly going to go to Travis Kelsey. So, unfair, but going Chiefs for tight end. So we're kind of 2-2 here. Onto the offensive line. Who do you feel takes the edge in the trench on the offensive side of the ball?
I mean, being biased, I've seen it all year. I mean, the Eagles' offensive line has protected the hell out of Jalen Hurts and has let Miles Sanders have the year of his career going into free agency. It's gotten to the point where, like you said, Boston Scott has gotten to shine.
Yep.
And Boston Scott, like, I love the guy, but for the Eagles before this year, he's just been the guy that's just been, if you need him, he's there. And that's a guy that you love to have, but that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that you want him in, maybe, getting, 20 snaps a game. But yeah, I mean, it's tough though, because both of these offensive lines are good. The Chiefs are gonna have to really, really have a good offensive line
Yeah.
out there for this game. But I gotta give the edge to the Eagles just for it's been a part of our masterclass this year.
Yeah. That might be the masterclass, honestly. That Eagles offensive line is one of probably the best in the league. And I don't think just best in the playoffs or best in this matchup, maybe best out of 32 teams. They have been able to run over teams that shouldn't get run against. They just destroyed the San Francisco 49ers first ranked run defense last just 2 weeks ago. So it's
Those
really
quarterbacks
hard.
got wrecked.
Yeah, it was nuts. So
That's why
the
I wish we got to face the Cowboys, man. I wanted that so. I wanted the Eagles versus the Cowboys so bad so that the
they would
Eagles
have
could
ran for
embarrass the
300
Cowboys
yards.
on live TV.
Yeah. So and really they have the chance of controlling this game to a point where this might be a very boring Super Bowl. If the Eagles offensive line really plays to their full capability, has a fully healthy game and just executes, nobody can stop them. The cool part is if once we flip over to the defensive side, we should have at least some excitement on it because both teams have absolute studs at defensive end, particularly, but the overall defensive line is very good for both teams. So I'll give it to the Eagles as well on the offensive line, of course. So let's flip right to the other side of the ball. Defensive line, what do you have here?
I'm like to save yourself from asking me from the defensive line to the secondary. I got a clean sweep again with the Eagles. Again, it's just a
So,
masterclass, man. It's
yeah,
beautiful. Like the defensive line, they play angry. Like they just play angry, but they also play like they got something to prove when they have nothing to prove. But they play like they have something to prove, and it's gross. I pray that Patrick Mahomes has the offensive line that really doesn't get him hurt. and because you saw what they did, the first drive that Purdy was in, he got steamrolled, his arm destroyed,
Yeah,
and then I think it was like the third drive that Josh Johnson was in. I mean, Josh Johnson was getting steamrolled even before that,
yeah,
but
he
it was
was.
almost similar. But then he got a concussion,
Right,
and then
right.
Brock Purdy comes back in, and he almost got steamrolled again.
Yeah, poor guy, man. So yeah, I'll do a quick run through of mine then. So defensive line, I agree. Eagles all the way. They've first time in history, four players on one
Beautiful.
defensive line end with double digit sacks. Unreal, and that continues. But the Chiefs have just about as much talent on their defensive line. When you look at Frank Clark and Chris Jones, both of those guys are monsters, and they could wreak just as much havoc as any individual on the Eagles. It's just that they're not four deep quite like the Eagles are. So that's why it has to go to the Eagles there. Secondary, same deal. I'm going Eagles all the way. They've been shutting pretty much
Their
everybody down.
spacing, like just no one can be
Yeah,
open.
yeah.
It's scary.
They've shut down elite wide receivers all year long, and they don't go up against one here. So if we're talking matchup in addition, then you gotta give them the edge there. But linebackers is where I'm actually going to go. Chiefs. I like Nick Bolton and Willie Gay a lot. I think both of
Fair.
those guys could play huge roles here in shutting down that run game because Kansas City obviously can't just do that with their line against that stacked Philly O line. So really, I think those are the two X factors if I have to for the defense is Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, and really how much they're able to do against that run game. So now let's take a look intangibly. I think we want to look at a couple different things. Who do you give the edge at head coach? Andy Reid or Nick Sirianni as it stands right now?
Wow. Okay, that I didn't expect from you, Bill. You got me there.
Threw you a curveball.
Um, this might lead into my prediction later. Spoiler alert. But Nick Sirianni has indeed, done some bonehead things this year. He's still, early into his, head coaching career. I give it to Andy Reid just for experience. He's been here. He's been here a few times, and he's won the big thing before. I got to give it to Andy Reid.
Yeah, Andy Reid has proven himself. Nick Sirianni, by all means, I really like the
He's
guy.
great. I love him.
I think he's gonna be good for a good long while. Kind of goofy, charismatic. The team absolutely loves the guy, and that's honestly one of the most important things. It's existent on both sides of the ball, though. So if that is there on both sides, and then you have all the X's and O's that Andy Reid has had over the course of his illustrious career, I got to give the edge to Andy Reid there. Now, let me also ask, which team do you feel is under more pressure?
The Chiefs. I
Yeah,
mean, if you look at it realistically, the Eagles, they should be able to bring this team back next year. And they should be able to bring this team back the year after that and the year after. This team is young.
yeah,
So for the Chiefs though, it's if the Chiefs lose this one, Patrick Mahomes is now 1-2 in the Super Bowl. The window, it's another year that Travis Kelce is getting closer, to his end goal. The Chiefs don't have that great of a team after this year. They have some key free agents. I think a lot of pressure on the Chiefs, a lot, but
yeah,
the Eagles, I don't want to say no pressure. I mean, their pressure is you guys are one of the best teams ever assembled. Can you get the job done on the biggest stage of them all? That's their pressure. But the Chiefs' pressure, it's a little more than that. It's like Mahomes' legacy, Travis Kelce. I mean, we've talked about it all year. Travis Kelce is trying to cement himself as the greatest tight end of all time. And I think another ring would do, work wonders in that case for him.
yeah,
Andy Reid, if he loses another one, he's what, 1-3 now, in the Super
Yeah,
Bowl, it wouldn't look good for the Chiefs, if they
right.
lose, in my
Get
opinion.
some LeBron treatment ultimately if you keep getting that close to a championship and not bringing it home. So, we know how much everyone hates to see somebody get this far and not actually take it home. So that's apparently worse than not making the playoffs at all. So realistically, I think you're right on a lot of different fronts there. I think it is a much, much, much closer to window to shutting on the Chiefs side of the ball compared to the Eagles, who, not to mention, have a top 10 pick in the draft this upcoming year. So the
That's what
Eagles
I
are
mean.
younger. It's not even close really to me, and they're a team that in theory is not supposed to be there. The Chiefs are supposed to be there, and so the pressure from a lot of different fronts are is on the Chiefs. However, Eagles are the favorite. So quick fun fact: the line, which started off as a pick 'em, has moved 2 points in the Eagles' favor. Essentially, it's anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5, depending on when you've been looking at it. But I will also say that any time since betting statistics and Super Bowls have been tracked, uh, there are 16 occasions where the line has moved by 2 points, and in those 16 occasions, the team that it moved toward is 14-2 against the spread. Eagles being -2 would obviously win straight up if they were part of that 14 team window that hit. So Eagles could cover -2 and join the majority here, or this stat could end up 14-3. We're gonna get Tom's pick pretty soon here, and we'll of course counter that with mine. But real quick before we get into the finishing touches on the Super Bowl, do want to just get a quick update on the NFL honors. We did get Brian Daboll announced as Coach of the Year. That's a big one that could have went a few different ways, but congrats to Brian Daboll, who did a hell of a job with a pretty
Cool.
rough Giants team.
Yeah,
Big shout out for the AP Comeback Player of the Year, Geno Smith, taking it home.
good.
So typically this is after an injury, but not tonight. It goes to Geno Smith,
I
who
like that.
came out of nowhere.
4,000 yards. I mean, playoffs.
Yeah,
He won the
playoffs.
first half against the 49ers.
How about that? That
If the
he's
football was one half, we'd be looking at Geno Smith moving on in the playoffs. But
absolutely.
as we were talking before the show, we got some exotic props here. Bill actually shocked me with one of these. So I'm gonna let Bill take this away. We're gonna go through
Yeah,
some props. We're gonna give our answers. But one of these, I'm amazed even ended up a prop. But
absolutely. So I did the research on this. I know too many of the odds, so I'm ready to just shock Tom with most of these. I did give him a little spoiler on the last one here. First, what color Gatorade do you think is going to get dumped on the winning head coach?
you gotta go with blue. Like blue is the like they're not gonna come out with some real exotic flavor of Gatorade. So you gotta think it's either gonna be red, orange, blue, or that lime, that random lime color that they have. And I just think blue is always the way to go. It's
We
just
have
I
seen
love
some
that.
serious odds movement on this. Orange was the runaway favorite at plus 400 before I brought any of this up, and blue is now plus 400. Orange has moved up to plus 300, but yellow is now the runaway favorite at plus 165.
That's
So
disgusting.
I guess we might be getting yellow.
That's
So
disgusting.
there's been a history of the Chiefs dumping orange Gatorade. So maybe yellow has a little bit of eagle connotation. We'll see about that. On to the next coin toss. Heads or tails? Same odds, believe it or not. No
I'd
script
hope.
on this, apparently.
Heads. I'm just gonna go heads.
All right.
Yeah. This is a
Uh,
cool Super Bowl matchup, so I'll go heads.
on to the next one. Will the national anthem singer miss a word?
Mm-mm. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not
It's
gonna
a
get
lot of
political. I'm not gonna sit here and say anything, but there's gonna be a lot of pressure. If they fuck up one word, they will hear about it, and I think they know that. So I'm gonna go with no. They're gonna get
remember.
someone that won't fuck up.
It's Chris Stapleton. I got faith in my guy, but over minute 59.
Under.
I'm going over. I'm going over for that for sure. So, which team's jersey will Drake show up to the stadium in?
No, Philly hates him.
It
So if
doesn't
he
matter.
shows up in a Philly jersey,
Doesn't matter if Philly
I
hates him. Does he hate Philly?
he's gonna show up in a Chiefs jersey because if he damn I don't know I
This guy is one of
logic
the
he
least
would show up in a
self-aware human
Chiefs
beings on the
jersey,
planet.
but
You don't think he cares or knows whether or not a city hates him.
well, he also doesn't. I mean, he had that beef with Meek Mill that's no longer a beef, but like at that point, I don't think we're gonna see Drake singing "Dreams and Nightmares" with a whole bunch of people if the Eagles win. So
That's fair. He
I
is
have
like
to say
minus
Chiefs.
300 to show up in a Chiefs jersey, so you're on to something there.
Yeah.
So over under on the number of times that the Kelsey Brotherhood is mentioned on the broadcast. 2.5 over or under.
Way over. I'm up into like 8, 9, 10 territory because every like especially late in the game, if the game is close or if the game is close early, they're gonna show like their mom in the stand. Like you know how they have set camera angles to keep going to? She will be one of those set camera angles by the end of the game. I'm telling you, like at the end of the game, she will be on our screen so much, and that's so honestly as a parent, I'm glad for her. Like that is awesome that she's gonna get so much TV time just because she birthed two really good human beings.
That's fair. That's fair. Good for them. Good for them. Now
Yeah.
on to my favorite prop. And also, just real quick, I did juice that. The over under is actually set at 1.5, and it's only like minus 195 for
Whoever
over
out
one and a
there
half.
can find that prop, slam the over, slam your house,
That's our
your
lock of the week.
firstborn,
Go for
put it all on the over.
Over 1.5 for damn sure. It'll at least get talked about at the end when one of them's gonna win, and there's no way it doesn't come
Take
up
the
earlier.
alt.
Let alone if one of them gets hurt, which is the only way you don't see enough of them to get to that. Guaranteed over. So my favorite of the night, and this is one that's genuinely offered. I will give the odds first. The yes I found is plus 2,500, so not nearly as juicy as I was hoping. The no is minus 15,000
How can you have it be negative 15,000 and then the other side be plus
because they're trying to make money, buddy. That's it.
25?
Will Tom Cruise parachute into the stadium and hand deliver the game ball to the referees? Yes or no, Tom?
If that's a prop, I'm just gonna fucking say yes.
Yes,
And if I find
yes
that prop,
parlay it with the Kelsey overs, and you got yourself some money here.
you got like I don't. Why would that be a prop if he's not gonna do it? You know what I mean? If it's negative 15,000,
Unreal.
that's like something Mattress Mac puts like $7 million on and loses.
So that wraps up our exotic props. Let's dive back into the Super Bowl for one last segment. I was gonna ask you about the X factor. Who do you have as the most important player on the field? Who do you think's gonna either really get it done or really not get it done for each team? But frankly, we both agreed that Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts on their respective teams are
Yeah.
clearly the X factor in any game they're in. So we're skipping to the Y factor. Let's take a look at who the next most important is for each team. And we'll each name one for each team. I'll let you start. Who do you have on the Eagles?
I mean, on the Eagles, I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith, and the reason why I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith is because the Chiefs are gonna do what every other team has done. They're gonna put a lot of pressure on AJ Brown, and if they're successful with that pressure on AJ Brown, then it's gonna be up to Devontae Smith, because I don't think the Eagles win this game with their running alone. I don't think they win the I mean, yeah, they destroyed their 49ers with their running game alone. But do I think that they repeat that in the Super Bowl? No. The Chiefs are Andy Reid is smart enough to where he's gonna have some kind of defense ready to contain Jalen Hurts, and he's gonna have to throw the ball. And if AJ Brown is not a target, it's gonna be up to Goddard. It's gonna be up to Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith is gonna have to get it done. If he's not on his A game, this could be a tough game.
Yeah, I Want to agree overall. First off, Devontae Smith, I liked him so much because I thought he was going to be a Miami Dolphin. But I really think he very close, very close. We went wild instead, and I got no regrets. But I like both players a lot.
I love Jalen
Yeah.
Waddle.
So off-season talk, a lot of that coming up. So with that said, I am going AJ Brown. I don't think that the Chiefs are really equipped to completely force it out of Brown's hands. I know we haven't seen a lot of AJ Brown throughout these playoffs, but that's kind of why I'm calling him my X factor here. I think the Eagles offense is going to have to pass a lot more than they have so far during the playoffs, and AJ Brown is going to be the benefactor of that. The Chiefs rank 31st in the league throughout the regular season in DVOA against number one wide receivers. So, in theory, if they are going to pass the ball, AJ Brown should be your guy. I could see him really having a hell of a game, win or lose, but he's a guy that could really break the top off of that defense, completely demoralize the Chiefs, and, it could be game over after a few long balls to Brown. Now, who do you have on the
Yeah.
Chiefs side?
I'll be that guy, and I'm just gonna say Travis Kelsey. And the reason being is that it's gonna like if Travis Kelsey doesn't have a good game, the Chiefs are dead,
Yeah,
in my opinion. If he has a good game, I think they'll be in it to the end. Win or lose, I think they'll be in it to the end. If Travis Kelsey can find his way open, he can find his way through the Eagles' defense. Because the Eagles, they're gonna have no choice but to put a lot of pressure on Travis Kelsey. So how he reacts to that is gonna dictate what happens for the Chiefs, in my opinion. And it might be a homer pick. It might be the obvious one. I know you're not gonna go with Travis Kelsey because you're Bill. Bill gives us the great insight, while I just give you guys the safe answers. So
with that said, honestly, Travis Kelsey is a pretty clear Y factor there. So I'll give you a Z factor just for giggles here, because you can't really match up to what that man is capable of and how he can control a game. But the next best thing, I think, Jerick McKinnon's really going to spell doom and gloom or absolute fireworks for this Chiefs offense. And we talked a little bit about how he's been underutilized during the playoffs. We talked plenty about how Pacheco has to be the ground and pound and establish the run type of guy. But once we're in passing downs, which there will be plenty of, especially after some sacks, which will happen against the Chiefs, if Mahomes can survive those hits, which hopefully he can, then, third and long, McKinnon can be that guy that takes a screen for a long first down. And I think they're going to need to convert one or two of those in order to have a chance, in order to
Fair.
even put 3 points up on the board at times. So if McKinnon and Kelsey both have good games, then it won't matter as much what wide receivers are out there. And we have a chance at some real offensive fireworks if both of them can get it going, just as if Smith and Brown can get it going on the other side of the ball. So now that we've really analyzed everything head to toe, let's hear it. Who have you got?
All right, man. So you gotta look at the story here. I look at a couple of things. The first thing, the Eagles, they had it kind of easy this year. I'm not so like if I look at it realistically, the Eagles should wipe the Chiefs' ass off the face of this planet. Like that should be what happens. But it's the NFL, right? And the couple things I look at is that the Eagles, Jalen Hurts has not played his best football since being injured. And on top of that, the Eagles haven't really faced a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes either. Um, so when it comes down to it, Patrick Mahomes, one thing I want to point out is that Patrick Mahomes has been here before. I don't mean just the Super Bowl, but I mean in a very lopsided matchup. We know what happens when we know what happened when he faced the Buccaneers a couple of years ago and they had that God squad. So he's gonna get another chance to do that. He's not gonna have to, do those crazy, side throws and all that. I think they're going to be better equipped for this matchup. And listen, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but I have a streak to protect. So, with that being said, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. But I will be rooting very, very hard for the Eagles, and I will not be mad if my streak ends. But I think I can't go against Mahomes. There's a part of me that wants and thinks that the Eagles are gonna win, but when I look at it, I just don't think the Eagles are gonna win on their first try. I think they win on a second or third try. Everything is just too good to be true, I think, and then a lot of these too good to be true stories. Every single time Peyton Manning got to the end, besides the two that he won, or Cam Newton, or the Atlanta Falcons. There's just a lot of stories that back up the Eagles losing, getting this far with this God squad, Patriots going undefeated that year and losing in the end. There's just a lot. It's just a lot here. I mean, realistically, we just broke it down position by position and said the only things that the Chiefs have is, quarterback and their linebackers. But I'm going with the Chiefs. I think it's an amazing game. I think we're gonna see a little bit of an underwhelming game from Jalen Hurts because, like I said, the Chiefs are gonna force him to pass. If anyone has really noticed, AJ Brown is a little pissed. We did not get that game that we thought we were gonna see out of him last week, so we'll see what happens. But either which way, if the Eagles win, I'm gonna be a happy ass man. So
Yeah. Listen, first time that you're announcing your pick on a podcast could be the jinx that you need to get this Eagles victory. But that's where I'm going. I think the Eagles are taking this home, and I think their time is right.
love the sound of it.
And something that we talked about is whose windows open longer. And by all means, I don't think the window's slamming shut for the Eagles, but I think this could be the best that they're going to be. I think them losing Vic Fangio to the Dolphins is going to hurt that defense. I don't think they're going to be quite as good, and they've been absolutely great. More sacks, they're like top 5 in the history of the NFL in sacks, especially once you consider throughout the whole postseason they had a chance at really breaking the record, from my understanding, in this Super Bowl. So this is just the stars aligning a bit, and they're so talented at every level of the ball. It's hard to pick against them. And when you look at what the Chiefs have done and where they were picked to finish, and the talent that they don't have at so many different positions, and their defense isn't the best. Steve Spagnuolo has done a phenomenal job getting the most out of his guys, especially young guys. Then I think this might be a case of the little Giants, by all means, could get through each of their opponents that are in their league, but the Eagles might not be in their league. And they haven't really played like they've been in the same league with anyone else throughout the year, given they haven't played any teams like the Chiefs. You're absolutely right. And I think they will get shell shocked in the first half. But damn, I think they
And
bounce
that and
back just
that's what I
fine.
mean. And that's all it could take is that one small thing could unravel for the
Yeah.
Eagles, and Mahomes could just ride off. And for me, it's like I said, can I picture Jalen Hurts holding up that Super Bowl trophy? This year, I cannot. What I can picture is Travis Kelce having a fucking field day after winning.
I can see
That
that
is
too.
that's the picture in my head that is the brightest out of all of the Super Bowl pictures.
So much easier to envision that. You're absolutely right with that.
And that's where I go with my picks.
That's fair. But here, let me show you the script that I was sent for this.
Oh shit!
I've got
I can't go back now. Bill,
I've got
you got sent the script.
forgot to tell you about this. So I do
Fuck.
have the Eagles getting punched in the mouth early. I think it's going to be about a 20-7 lead before the Eagles can wake up. But you see it pretty frequently where the Chiefs fumble the bag once they get ahead by a good amount. And all of a sudden, we got to rely on Mahomes for a fourth quarter, 2 minute left, 30 seconds left comeback, which, by the way, Mahomes was just named MVP. So congrats to Mahomes. at breaking news as we're in the middle of singing his praise. But at the same
Fuck
time,
that.
while he's the master of that comeback, that it's way too often that he needs to. So it's a mix of the defense letting the offense down a little bit in the second half, but also offense sputtering once they get a little bit figured out. Not many teams are used to playing the speed and the just physicality that some of this Chiefs offense can bring to them. Eagles will be most prepared for it out of anybody that they've faced so far. It's the best defense they're going to face all year. So they can contain that punch in the mouth a little bit. And then all of a sudden, once the Eagles get their momentum, we might be looking at a 14-point or 17-point lead for the Eagles, where it's too much for Mahomes to come back from. Or even if it's not that egregious, you could really stop a ton of these Patrick Mahomes comebacks with one timely sack. And they've got a lot of timely sacks in them on the Eagles side. So
I do fear for Patrick Mahomes' health in this game.
I
Not
do
gonna
too.
lie.
I do too. So I think this is the last year we
But
have to fear for it at this level, because I think just the scheme and the coaching declines a bit next year. But still, I this year it's the Eagles. It's got to be the Eagles.
all right, man. I think there's only one thing left to do, and that's really to watch the game.
Yeah,
That's it. We're here. Super Bowl is here. This is again. I get to sweat and I get to be this is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like the Eagles being in the Super Bowl again is just a blessing.
I got one
But
last question for you
over
before we completely send it off. This is not one that was part of the script, but Kansas City ribs or Philly cheesesteaks?
Philly cheesesteak. I mean, have you ever been to Philly?
I have. So
Have you had a Philly cheesesteak in
yeah,
Philly?
of course, of course. So I'm Pat's over
Insane.
Geno's, but I've joined these cheesesteak gurus groups and stuff, and all of a sudden I'm learning there's a lot more to the world. I need to get me to Angelo's. I actually got a Blackstone for Christmas, and I got the Cooper Sharp American cheese. I know what I'm doing over here. So, and it's going to be Philly cheesesteaks all day on Sunday. So
Fair enough, man.
hopefully that brings in the Eagles victory for my bankroll
Yes.
and for all the bets I've got going. Hopefully your streak breaks for your own sake. But man, above all else, hoping for a great game. We've had a great season
Yes.
talking to you all. Uh, Continue to like, subscribe, make sure you're enjoying all this content across all platforms. Stay tuned for plenty of shorts and everything as we're talking about Super Bowl. But more importantly, we got a great offseason of content planned for you. We really put a lot of work into this season in particular, but just as much work has gone into preparing for this offseason. We're going to take deep dives into every team across the entirety of the NFL. We'll have draft specials, some combine action once this coaching all wraps
Guests.
up. Going to be a lot of quarterback movement. It's going to be exciting. This NBA trade deadline that was today provided a lot of excitement, but we've got the NFL free agency that's going to be just as crazy, and that isn't
That
far
NBA
away
episode is a mess to plan, by the way.
either.
But because LeBron wants to break the record and KD wants to get traded and Kyrie. But either which way, like Bill said, just want to say it's been a real. I get a little bit emotional saying it. It's been a real pleasure, being able to
Honor.
do this podcast. This NFL season was great. It's been exciting all the way down to this Chiefs Eagles number 1 seed versus number 1 seed matchup that we're getting. Thank you everyone that's come along this journey with us. The journey doesn't stop here though. As Bill said, we have some amazing content for you in the off season. So listen to this guy. He's given you a lot of good advice when it came to DraftKings this year. So listen to his advice when he says like, subscribe, share, give some feedback, sell your souls, shout out to Belgium, all that good stuff, because it doesn't stop here. The train ain't stopping. We love what we're doing. We know you guys love what we're doing, so we're not going to stop. So thank you for watching. Make sure you guys tune into the Super Bowl. I mean, that's all you have left to do at this point. And tune into our off-season episodes. Thank you.
And last disclaimer, follow my advice on the like and subscribe piece. Don't follow on Tom Cruise bets. But thanks for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your Super Bowl.
Have a good night.